Today, I'm sitting with Russ Scala to discuss performance enhancement drugs, or PEDs. Are they good for you, or are they bad for you? With over 40 years of experience in medicine, Russ is going to blow the lid off this controversial subject and talk about how steroids are life-saving. All right, folks, here we are with Russ Scala. Russ, welcome.
How you doing, bro?
Good to have you in here. All right, we're going to talk about some controversial stuff today.
Well, see if we could dispel some myths, man.
I like it. Okay, so performance enhancement drugs, PEDs, or steroids. Talk a little bit about what's the difference. Is there a difference? Just let the audience kind of educate them a little bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of myths out there. We're going to soon see that performance enhancing drugs are going to be needed to keep us healthy as we age. Some steroids are designed to knock out inflammation in the body. Other steroids that our body naturally produces are beneficial to our body, and that's what sort of people don't understand. Physiologically, we produce steroids that are beneficial. In fact, cholesterol is our first steroid that makes all the hormones in our body, including testosterone.
Good, so let's go into your history a little bit. So talk about your history as a paramedic and as a triathlete. You guys did those together, and how'd that kind of prepare you to go into the performance enhancement field?
Yeah, that was the perfect storm for me. When I was responding to emergency calls and I was trained as a paramedic, I had to understand how to give drugs into the body with different delivery systems, IV therapy, sublingual dosing of drugs, and I had to understand the physiology. And the doctors that were my mentors taught me about the physiology. I would give drugs to slow the heart or to speed the heart up and help cardiac arrest victims. So I had a real good understanding of physiology early on. And because of the emergency work, I knew we were drinking too much. We were banging down the carbohydrates, trying to maintain our brain chemistry. I had to find a healthy sport. And I moved away from the emergency workers, and I started doing triathlons and hanging out with the early triathlete community. And the triathlete community, I started doing testing on them. And early on in the 80s, and I started seeing, I would see arrhythmias on heart patients, and I started seeing arrhythmias with triathletes that were supposedly super fit. And then a couple of them would have a heart attack, or they would have these symptoms for being very healthy, and I had to dive in early on and understand the performance, the brain chemistry, and the heart function of triathletes, because I've immersed myself in these two fields, and I started seeing things that nobody else saw, and that sort of opened up my door to experiment with performance enhancement, because we were doing blood work on these people early on, and we saw that their hormones or their steroid levels were really low from all the training.
Wow. So you think triathlete, athlete, super healthy, but your experience as a paramedic, you were looking at their heart and their levels and be like, wow, I've seen this before. Why are these guys not so healthy?
Yeah, exactly.
Cut down
and I think that was a shocker for me, because I was getting away from drinking, getting away from the emergency workers.
All the bad stuff, thinking you're doing something good, and it's damaging your body even more.
Yeah, and I raced, I did some high intensity racing, and I was damaging my body, and I'm thinking, I come across the finish line, I'm thinking I'm healthy. And no, I wasn't healthy, but it allowed me to peer inside the physiology of very fit athletes, and allowed me early on to look at what was happening to the heart. Why are these guys having arrhythmias? I thought exercise built great collateral circulation so you could avoid a heart attack, but too much exercise damaged the electrical pathway. See, I would look at EKGs on heart patients, and then I would look at the electrocardiogram of athletes, and they were similar. They were damaging their heart. So back in the 80s, I started questioning this. Of course, I wanted to talk to cardiologists about it, and I had an arrhythmia called atrial fibrillation, and no cardiologist could help me. So I knew that heart arrhythmia I could throw a blood clot. So I was shit scared, not getting answers. So I had to figure it out myself. But that was ground zero for me early on to learn the physiology in those two fields.
Okay, so that kind of prepared you for a career in the performance enhancement, and you started working at Signature Pharmacy after that, which they were later involved in the largest steroid bust in the United States. So talk a little about that, and then your role in that.
Yeah, that was a very innovative time. Because I understood what was happening to the physiology, and I had partnerships with the best research labs. One of my buddies brought me on board at Signature as I was in charge of research and development, because I understood that physiologically, physical, mental, and emotional stress, cause hormone deficiencies. Then Signature was big into the women's hormone replacement market. So they had 4,000 or 5,000 people already on the hormone replacement program, steroids. I mean, we were saving lives there. And what I did is I brought on my nutritional program to distribute through their distribution channel. So my job there was to train physicians. I worked on the long-acting growth hormone to do blood work to track that. We were doing very, very innovative things in the performance enhancement market, and that field allowed me to look at multiple sets of blood work, talk to multiple physicians. When I traveled to Chicago and Vegas, I would sit with the physicians and discuss the steroids or the beneficial effects of performance-enhancing drugs on the aging metabolism. I also got to design disease-specific treatment protocols that steroids would be needed for, heart disease. Steroids were going to be needed to rehab the brain. We were doing this, in 2004. So Signature, we were out on the tip of the spear. They eventually, they got in trouble. We went from $4 million to like $26 million in a very short period of time, and we were the go-to people. So my evolution of taking people into nursing homes and then working at anti-aging clinics, I got to see people deteriorating, losing muscle mass, and then I got to see people maintaining muscle mass and in a disease prevention state. And those two things are what's allowing us to design treatment protocols today.
So getting more back into the PEDs, okay, performance enhancement drugs, how can they help the body from a performance standpoint, but also a health and longevity standpoint? Okay,
great question. Well, let's look at the two markets I immersed myself in. As a paramedic, when I was a kid, taking people into nursing homes, watching them deteriorate with muscle wasting, and then working in an anti-aging center, watching people use the steroids or the performance-enhancing drugs as they age. And they were in the game. They were still had that gleam in their eye. They were still riding their bikes around Europe. So I got to compare and contrast those two areas. So let's take testosterone, for instance. Testosterone protects the heart. Testosterone at the right level will protect the lining of the arteries and prevent heart disease. Okay, what else does testosterone do? Let's forget about muscle and libido for a minute. Testosterone maintains your blood sugar, lowers your blood sugar, and lowers your insulin levels. Okay, high insulin is responsible for a lot of diseases. High insulin is responsible for diabetes, heart disease, cancer, obesity. Okay, testosterone helps bring down insulin levels. I have diabetic clients that are on TRT, testosterone therapy. They don't need to give themselves so much insulin. So physiologically, these steroids or these PEDs have been given a bad name, and they're needed. This is why I'm training physicians. They're needed to enhance our life as we age. Think about the brain chemistry. Testosterone is a natural antidepressant. Do you want to give somebody Prozac, Paxil, and Zoloft that damages the prefrontal cortex? Or how about optimizing a little testosterone, optimizing a little thyroid, which are naturally occurring in our body, to enhance our brain chemistry? In fact, heart disease is caused from hypothyroidism, which can be corrected by just doing a blood test. People don't even need cholesterol-lowering drugs. You know why cholesterol-lowering drugs are bad? Cholesterol is the one thing that makes up testosterone, which is beneficial to our brain chemistry as we age. So cleaning the chalkboard off in people's heads and dispelling the myths about steroids, I think once people get their head around this, they're going to take charge of their own health. If their doctor is just going to give them medication, they're not going to understand I have naturally occurring hormones in my body that I'm deficient in, and I'm going to fix this. Now, they need to be held by the hand. That's why we started the Russ Scala YouTube channel, so you can get information and apply it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of misinformation out there, but there's a lot of good stuff that comes from these.
Exactly.
You're out there telling them all about it.
Here's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to educate the people because our medical system is broken. Physicians have to see 30 people a day. I've trained thousands of physicians over, a 35-year period. Some of the doctors are on the program I developed with my physicians that are trained. And a physician will tell you, like, Russ, I don't have time. I got to see 30 people a day. I love your program, but I only get 10 minutes with the patient. So now the people are saying, okay, the hell with that. I'm going to go online. I'm going to learn the research. I'm going to take care of myself. The people are becoming CEOs of their own health. And that's going to shift the paradigm in medicine. People are saving their lives, losing weight, correcting diabetes, all without a physician involved. It's being done on the internet right now. It's being done on Facebook right now.
That's great. That's great. How about the HPA axis? Tell us a little about how the HPA axis comes into play with all.
Okay, good question. The HPA axis is sort of where I focus. The hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis is basically our flight or flight system in our body. The HPA axis, you got to look at that if you want to treat somebody correctly. So physical, mental, and emotional stress compromise or shut down the HPA axis. There's a great book by Dr. Sapolsky, PhD out of Stanford, wrote the book, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. He talks about psychoneuroimmunology, and that's a big word for saying if you're under stress, you're going to lower your immune system. If you're under stress, you're going to shut down the HPA axis. So somebody listening to this today can Google the HPA axis and steroids, or the HPA axis and PEDs, or the HPA axis and testosterone, and look at when your HPA axis, when your adrenals and thyroid, okay, and hormonal levels are under stress, they get shut down, and you need to correct those deficiencies. If you're a war veteran coming back from Iraq, or you're a corporate executive, if your testosterone levels are low because of stress, you don't need a drug or an antidepressant. You need to balance out your hormone levels. So understanding the HPA axis physiologically, the HPA axis actually creates steroids internally that are beneficial for us.
Wow, and that goes for anybody too, a single mom, a person that's working too much. It doesn't even have to be a veteran or a war.
Exactly. Understanding, my goal is to teach people basic physiology, help them understand the HPA axis. So if everybody's biochemically unique, we want to be able to train them to look at the HPA axis and have them make smart moves in a shorter period of time to take care of themselves. I mean, I think that's going to be the future of medicine.
That makes sense.
Right?
All right, so getting back to the athletes and the PEDs, what kind of heart problems have you seen in athletes, and how can the performance enhancement drugs help them out?
Yeah, well, for the athletes that are flying by the seat of their pants, I mean, you know, everybody from the Tour de France guys that are using EPO to increase their red blood cell count, that are throwing blood clots, to people that are using testosterone at extremely high doses or thickening up their blood can have problems. If you dose yourself in the physiological range, then it can be life-saving. I mean, there's extremes out there. I've worked with bodybuilders and watched and learned from them, look at the damage that they cause, but also understood they knew more about muscle mass and maintaining muscle mass than anybody out there. Now the endurance athletes are all about muscle wasting, but they understand how to have a very strong heart and improve performance to go miles and miles, whether it's a marathon or a long distance triathlon. So immersing myself in those two fields, you know, once we understand that you could cause heart problems by giving too much of the drug, or you could actually protect your heart by giving the right dose and maintaining your physiological level or looking at the HPA axis. You maintain your HPA axis and document how you feel and do your blood work. This will get you well past the age of 100 healthy. I've seen this done at anti-aging centers. I've seen it done, not being done in nursing homes. So I always keep those two thoughts in the back of my head, and I work with, you know, hundreds of physicians that understand this process, and they're saving people every day. And, you know, I got to evaluate the blood work, and it's sort of locked into my long-term storage moving forward.
Well past 100, huh? I mean, it sounds good, but it might not be good in the long
No, I mean, yeah, okay. Here's the thing. That's
healthy
good.
100, yeah.
No, here. I remember as a paramedic when I was a kid trying to save the world, which was, I had that idolized image. I would have people that I, you know, shocked them, wanted to bring them back to life, and they were in their 80s, and I'm trying to start their heart. I remember on many occasions them pushing me away, saying, "I have no husband, I have no children with me. You know, I'm ready to go," and I'm trying to save them, and that always kind of resonated with me. And then I see, you know, fast forward 30 years, I'm working at these high-level anti-aging centers, and I see the same age people still wanting to stay in the game because they're taking steroids or performance-enhancing drugs. It's impacting their brain chemistry, maintaining their muscle mass. So in my mind, seeing that woman push me away saying I'm ready to die, and then seeing another elderly patient going, "I'm still in the game, dude. I want to go to Europe. I want to ride my bike." That is why I'm in this business. That's why I want to educate people, because, you know, everybody, you know, and I hear people say that, "I don't want to live to 100. That's because their quality of life sucks now. They can't think about living another 20 years. You know, of course. So let's help them with their quality of life, whether it's diet, whether it's getting them the balance of hormonal therapy, cleaning up their intestinal tract. You know, we could do so much that's not being done in medicine right now. Our medical system is about 37th in the world. That's deplorable. But people like us are changing that.
All right, so now that we're in the elderly market, let's just, you know, hang out here for a second.
Right.
We hear a lot about calcium and strong bones, but it's really about strong muscles, okay? And then you can measure muscle mass and muscle wasting with an IDEXA machine. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, when I actually worked inside an imaging center for a few years, we had an IDEXA machine that would do an imaging of the body, and we would image a person. We would be able to look at their body fat to muscle ratio. And that was cool because the scale, when you get on a scale, it gives you like 160 pounds, doesn't tell you your body fat to muscle ratio. So when I was doing imaging on people, looking at their body fat to muscle ratio, and we were getting them on the hormone replacement program, and if they were in their 60s, we were maintaining muscle mass, they were actually losing body fat and maintaining muscle mass. And that's what we want to do. So many people, older people, are going, "Oh, I got osteoporosis." And in reality, osteoporosis is coming from lack of muscle mass. The pharmaceutical companies want to sell a drug, one drug for osteoporosis, when in reality, it's multifactorial. If a woman in her 80s, 90s, or 100 maintains her muscle mass with steroids, okay, then she's going to maintain her bone health. Okay, this is where the myths come in. There's a lot of bad information out there. Osteoporosis, the osteoporosis drugs on the market really don't help people. They have to look at multiple systems, look at the HPA axis, and balance out their hormonal levels. It's called sarcopenia. When a person loses muscle mass as they age, or they lose denervation, the nerves going into the muscle. Why is that? Well, they're inactive, they're not exercising, they need to do resistance training, balance out their hormonal levels. Okay, everything that a cancer patient goes through with chemotherapy, or an AIDS patient goes through with muscle wasting. This is why we studied bodybuilders, AIDS patients. This is why we put together treatment protocols for muscle wasting. So it's not about osteoporosis as you age, it's more about sarcopenia or muscle wasting, which I used to see in the nursing homes.
And we have a small video about that. We're going to go ahead and show that right now.
One of the greatest overlooked long-term threats to our ability to remain healthy and function independently as we age is a steady loss of lean muscle mass, a condition known as sarcopenia. This condition of muscle wasting usually appears after the age of 40 and accelerates after the age of 75.
Over the last 20 years at the Institute, we've been studying muscle wasting, be it in endurance athletes or the elderly. And we collected data on physiologically what actually happens to the body in a muscle wasting state. Let me give you an example. If an older person falls and breaks their hip and they got to go in the hospital, their muscles are actually a reservoir of nutrients that are going to break down during the recovery process. So maintaining muscle mass is very expensive, be it an athlete or an elderly person. And we developed treatment protocols over the last 20 years that are really going to focus on this for the elderly. Think about muscle mass as important to keep you moving, to keep you exercising. Your heart is a muscle, okay? If you maintain muscle mass in your legs and arms, you're also going to protect your heart and your brain as you age. Muscle is a reservoir of nutrients and amino acids that actually elevate our immune system and keep us healthy.
Like osteoporosis, sarcopenia is a multifactorial disease process that may result from suboptimal hormone levels, inadequate dietary protein, lack of exercise, oxidative stress, inflammation, and other nutritional imbalances. Due to the variety of factors involved in this disease, treatment in the traditional medical system can be a very long and frustrating experience.
If you go the traditional medicine route, it'll take you about 2 years to get answers on muscle wasting. And what we can do in about 30 days is we could get a baseline on multiple hormone levels, your intestinal tract, what nutrient deficiencies you have, and then customize a protocol for you. Then together with the proper resistance training, the right amount of aerobic exercise, balance of nutrients, cleaning up your intestinal tract so you pull nutrients out of food. That's what's going to help your body resonate. That's what's going to help you hang on to the muscle.
Here at the Institute of Nutritional Medicine and Cardiovascular Research, we've immersed ourselves in many different cultures that don't talk to each other. We have extensive research and education in the cancer market, the bodybuilder market, endurance athletes, the HIV and AIDS market, muscle wasting in the elderly, and the NASA space market, as well as the transgender market to study the opposite effects of hormonal replacement therapy. This collaboration of resources and research allows us to customize treatment protocols that are unique to each individual, regardless of age or gender.
Billions of dollars are spent on educating us about osteoporosis, folks. But the reality is if you maintain your muscle mass, your bones will stay strong.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the medical system.
All right.
Iatrogenic deaths, or deaths in the medical system, over 250,000 a year just by the medical system process. I mean, that seems ridiculous. So let's talk a little bit about how medication helps somebody or hurts somebody versus PEDs can help somebody in the system.
Yeah, we got to, okay, let's look at the history. Iatrogenic deaths, people can Google that. That's called death caused by the healer. Depending on the study, the third leading cause of death in the United States is our own medical system. Well, why is that? And again, I'm not shooting down our medical system or doctors. I worked in the emergency system that was the #1 in the country, in the world, saving lives. It seems like now when we get into our medical system, there's a lot of accidents and a lot of overprescription and people are dying with iatrogenic deaths. So if we look at the medical schools in their third year in medical school where they're able to write prescriptions as physicians inside the hospital, there is no research on hormone replacement therapy. There's no research on nutrition. Nutrition is a part of life-saving. So our medical system, with over 4,000 hours to become a doctor, there's nothing in nutrition. There's nothing in diet when that's needed to save somebody's life. So people are dying from multiple medications. People, older folks, have 3 or 4 doctors that are not talking to each other, that are writing prescriptions that are damaging their body. All right? So now we're educating the people because this huge tsunami of a system is not going to change overnight. So people are educating themselves. Instead of taking drugs, maybe I'm going to balance out my hormonal levels. Maybe I'm going to learn about nutrition. Maybe I'm going to go on the ketogenic diet and try intermittent fasting for my diabetes. I am not buying into a system that's only going to give me drugs. I want to correct my deficiencies. I want to correct my deficiencies so I can live a productive life. And that's what's happening in real time right now.
That's amazing. Yeah, a lot of people are getting educated on the
Exactly.
internet. All right, so speaking of the medical system,
Right.
you yourself, you raced for over 20 years. You talked about how you damaged your body. You had a chance to go into the medical system and try and get fixed, but you didn't. You chose to do performance enhancement drugs and look at your body, look at other ways of helping yourself. Talk about that.
Yeah, I thought my heroes are Mark Allen and Dave Scott, the 2 triathletes. They did the Ironman race. I wanted to do the Ironman race. I never made it to Hawaii, but I did like 5 or 6 half Ironmans, which was it's a 1.5 mile swim, 56-mile bike, 13-mile run. My first one I did in 8 hours. The last one I did when I quit was, I almost did it in 4 hours and 40 minutes. So, I mean, I love the sport because it was a challenge. You had to learn about your physiology. I swam 12.6 miles around the Keys one year to test my endurance. And I started the ketogenic diet in 1996. So I was always pushing the outside of the envelope, thinking I was healthy. And I ended up with a heart arrhythmia, and I started seeing sick people around me. I had post-race depression. Like after a race, I would be I remember 84 to 96, I would have post-race depression. After every race, I was just like wanting to stay in the house, not wanting to move. Then I started doing my blood work in 95, and I was tracking my blood work. I had low testosterone, low growth hormone, low IGF-1, low thyroid. So I'm looking at all these low levels, and I'm trying to be healthy. Then I had to drag a guy out of a building when I was a firefighter. Here I am, a healthy triathlete. Everybody at the department thought I was healthy. I had to drag a guy like 50 feet with my fire department gear on. I had to sit down for 45 minutes because I was so exhausted. That's when I learned about sports specific. I might have been a healthy triathlete, but I was losing muscle mass like crazy. So I had these wake-up calls along the way. So the performance-enhancing drugs saved my life. I mean, I had doctors that worked with me that says, Russ, you got the body of an 80-year-old man according to your blood work. In fact, I had to call an ambulance to come get me one day after a 100-mile bike ride. My lower back was so shot, I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed the next morning. I had to be transported to the emergency room, and then I had to strengthen my lower back with a special machine from a Navy SEAL guy named Clem, to strengthen my lower back over 6 months because I damaged my body riding long distance. So who knew? So I made a lot of mistakes along the way, but here's how performance-enhancing drugs.
Well, first of all, most people, if they run into that situation, they just go to the doctor and say, hey, I'm upset, I'm depressed, and they just get medication.
Right, exactly.
But instead, you went and looked at yourself in a different light.
Because I knew physiology and I knew my body, I knew that I was damaging my hormonal system. So in order to rehab myself, it took about 4 years. So yeah, I used performance-enhancing drugs that were prescribed to me from my physician. In 1996, growth hormone was approved for adults with growth hormone deficiency. I had a growth hormone deficiency. I was low in testosterone. I was low in thyroid. Why? The elevated cortisol from the stress response, psychoneuroimmunology, Dr. Sapolsky we talked about a little earlier, I was shutting down my HPA axis. So how am I going to heal my HPA axis? I was cranky. I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't want to train anymore. And forget about an erection. They were non-existent, which it was tied to the testosterone levels. And then when I went on the ketogenic diet in 96 and I went to a high-fat diet, the high-fat diet elevated my cholesterol. Well, what happened when I elevated cholesterol? My testosterone levels went up, started getting wood back. That was a good sign, right? But I needed help, and it took 4 years for me to rehab my body. Yeah, exactly.
That's how they save your life. Huh?
Exactly. It literally, it was like a whole nother world opened up for me. I went from a 150-pound, triathlete that was miserable, not getting the answers from physicians, to working with special doctors that took me by the hand. And then of course, I got interested in, can I put any muscle mass on at 50? And yeah, you could. I went from like 150 to 200, and I didn't like being 200 because I had to eat a lot, and when you eat too much, you elevate IGF-1, which can open you up for cancer. I was elevating my insulin levels. When I was 200 pounds, I had a little sleep apnea going on. So again, because I'm extreme, I wanted to test, and I wanted to be an experiment. I was into performance as a triathlete, and then as I started feeling better, I wanted to see how much weight I could lift. Well, carrying all that muscle mass is not healthy either. So I don't want to piss off the triathletes or the bodybuilders. I don't want to have any of those two guys coming after me. But I've learned a lot from both fields, you know, to save myself.
So you took that knowledge, all right, and you got your program, and you have a lot of patients on your program now too. Let's talk a little bit about some of the patients you have. You have some multiple sclerosis patients, okay, brain injury patients. You also have people that are depressed, all sorts of stuff, deficient in so many different ways, but some really unique cases. So how can performance enhancement drugs help them?
Well, what I did was I took the disease-specific treatment protocols and all the research, and I put together a team of people. And the way we do this, and you're familiar with it because you've helped me, when we design advanced treatment protocols, be it cancer, heart disease, or multiple sclerosis, and we're looking at the HPA axis, first of all, we got to collect all the research that's out there because we're putting things together that the Mayo Clinic doesn't even have. We have patients flying in to go through our program, so we got to have it together, right? So first of all, we pull all the research together, like the team we do, and then you and I shoot a video to dispel all the myths out there, because a lot of people are going to say, my doctor never told me about this. Well, of course he didn't, because he's trained one way. So, you know, working with brain injury patients, we need performance-enhancing drugs to help somebody with neurogenesis to grow new brain tissue, to grow the little connections called synaptogenesis. All the NFL players with head trauma, the troops coming back from Iraq with traumatic brain injury, guess what? They're going to need PEDs to save their life. They're going to need performance-enhancing drugs, growth hormone, testosterone, thyroid. What are they getting right now? They're getting pain medication, which causes the opiate bowel. You give somebody opiates for pain, it causes imbalance in their intestinal tract and lowers their testosterone levels. Great. Now we got to get them on the PEDs, or the beneficial steroids that are produced in their body, to help them feel better. So we've designed brain injury protocols, which you can see in the Russ Scala YouTube channel, dementia, heart disease. One of my triathlete buddies had a heart attack, the fittest guy on the planet. Why are triathletes and marathon runners having heart attacks right now? I believe it's tied to elevated cortisol, low testosterone levels. When your testosterone levels are low, the lining of your arteries become damaged, called your endothelial lining. I've got videos on that as well, because I've been always fascinated with heart attacks for the last 30 years, and I knew the doctors, the cardiologists were not on the same page. So if your hormonal levels are low, it will damage the lining of your heart. If you want to rehab a brain injury, which we have done with our group, with our neurologists, with our physicians, if you want to rehab a brain injury, then you better understand how the performance-enhancing drugs are going to help somebody with a brain injury to create new brain tissue.
All new territory, man.
Exactly.
So you have a program specifically for athletes, and we have a tennis video that we have that was actually aired on NBC News. We're going to show that one.
I mean, I started playing tennis when I was probably 4 or 5 years old.
She played with the pros as a teen.
I won a couple national championships, which was awesome.
Stephanie Nikitas has a rigorous routine to stay at the top of her game, but recently her body put on the brakes.
Is issues with weight gain, lack of sleep, not feeling like I was recovering.
When her own trips to the vitamin store didn't help, she came here to get a personalized analysis of her problem.
Due to the advanced testing, we're able to look at people on a cellular level. A lot of folks just swallow pills arbitrarily and really don't know how much they need. Well, now we're able to dial that in and tell you how much you need of a vitamin B6, for instance, down to the milligrams.
Stephanie had a genetic profile done. Then pharmacists created a concoction designed to fill what she was missing. 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C, 500 milligrams of vitamin B, 20 milligrams of niacin, 8,000 milligrams of folic acid, 4,000 milligrams of glycine to ease stress, and 500 milligrams of arginine to improve immune and hormone function. It also told her to eat a diet rich in probiotics.
We're noting a deficiency of a specific vitamin or mineral, and that's what we're giving them back. Practice biology before pharmacology. Test, don't guess. Education before medication.
Studies are emerging, however, that show the promise of NUTRIGENOMICS, the science of how your genes interact with food. At Stanford University, researchers assigned 138 overweight and obese women to either a low-fat or low-carb diet, depending on their genes. Those assigned to the right diet for their genotype lost 5 times as much weight. But Stephanie is sold. After taking the specialized supplement and tweaking her training, she lost 7 pounds of body fat.
You do feel a boost of energy with them when you take them, but also it's more sustained throughout the day.
An athlete who says it's worth the cost not to play a guessing game with her nutrition. I'm Casey Taylor reporting.
With all this information out there, patients are becoming more empowered themselves with knowledge. There's books, there's information on the internet. One of the books, The Patient Will See You Now. Talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, that's Eric Topol wrote a book, The Patient Will See You Now, and he basically in 400 pages talks about how people are doing exactly what we said. They're not going to their doctor. They're going to go online and empower themselves. They're going to get their own blood work done. They're going to try to cure diabetes. They're going to try to cure depression. They're going to help with their energy levels all online. And they're going to use technology. They're going to, pretty soon they'll be able to do monitor their blood work with their iPhone. They're going to wear bands at night to see whether they're going into REM sleep. So this book, The Patient Will See You Now, is Dr. Topol from the Cleveland Clinic is alerting people like there's going to be a paradigm shift. And all these doctors that aren't giving people answers, these people are going to find them out on their own. That's why we created the Russ Scala YouTube channel just to educate people. People go to our YouTube channel and watch something, they get the aha moment and start asking their doctor going, wait a minute, don't put me on an SSRI yet, don't put me on Paxil, why don't you check my thyroid?
So as much as people go out there and are trying to research stuff on their own, there's still a lot of misconception and stuff, talking about even the testosterone crave. That people just hear about testosterone like, oh, let me just get testosterone. But so talk about the importance of not just getting one drug or hormone level, but looking at everything as a whole, like your blood work and the whole body as a whole, as opposed to just going, Doc, I just want some testosterone.
Yeah, and that's a great, I just went in here in Orlando, I went to 2 urologists and I brought them the information on testosterone. They have no idea how to dose their patients, so I gave them the information and I just said, here, just help your patients with this. Physicians don't know how to dose testosterone and they're afraid to dose it. When it's, if you're not afraid to give somebody thyroid for hypothyroidism, then don't be afraid to give somebody testosterone, but everybody's worried about liability. Okay, so if you dose testosterone the wrong way, if you give yourself 500 milligram shot once a week of testosterone when your testicles only release and your adrenals only release 8 to 10 milligrams, then you're going to get in trouble. You're going to spike it. So, the doctors out there that are just treating testosterone in isolation, you'll start to see all these testosterone clinics popping up. And they're just giving testosterone by itself. That isn't a good way to treat somebody. You need to treat the HPA axis. You need to treat the person. Sit there, look at the person, monitor his levels. That person has to understand if he's going to go on testosterone therapy, he needs to do his blood work to monitor his blood thickness, to monitor his hemoglobin and his hematocrit, to monitor his testosterone levels. Because if you want to age and use testosterone safely, it can be done. I've seen thousands, tens of thousands of people across the world getting taken care of doing this the right way. Okay, so doctors that just treat testosterone in isolation, just write a prescription for testosterone. They're just as much to blame as the problem as people going online and just looking up, the steroid Bible, and they're just saying, well, I just want to get testosterone so I can put on 30 pounds of muscle mass. Those folks aren't healthy either.
And I know you've even talked about too, sometimes you don't just need testosterone, it's too much estrogen. An estrogen blocker lowers that, naturally raises your testosterone, and then you're better off too. And
that's where these doctors, great, thank you. That's why we shot the estrogen dominance video. So guys that are out there that are carrying a little weight, if a doctor puts them on testosterone, these heavy set guys, these gentlemen that are a little heavy, they have low testosterone, but they have high estrogen. So the estrogen, the testosterone is converting to estrogen. That's why they got the man boobs and they got the belly. So in reality, he doesn't need any more testosterone. He needs to get the estrogen blocked. He needs a program specifically designed for weight loss. So the doctors that are just writing prescriptions for testosterone, the guy's going, I'm gaining more weight. What's going on? Well, that's the reason, because you can't just write a prescription for testosterone. You've got to look at multiple metabolic systems of somebody's body. Do it the right way, guys. Everybody's thinking about the money. Just do it the right way.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice if we just did it the right way? So good. So yes, there is a lot of good information out there. There's some misconceptions. There's a lot of good information out there. I mean, you yourself have the YouTube page. There's a lot of good books out there. But also, you have a book coming out too called The American Biohacker. All right, tell us a little bit about that. That's cool.
Yeah, I got approached. So I'm going to tell my story. And my story when I started working in the emergency room in high school, and my evolution to working with high-level brain injury patients and pulling this team together that we work with. So
it's basically just a story about you, everything you've gone through, and then a little bit of information there.
Yeah, all my trials and tribulations of experimenting, understanding the hormone replacement theory, my research into performance enhancement, getting doors shut in my face, getting called batshit crazy. It's going to be my story. So my goal is to have people that read that book understand that they could empower themselves with health.
But it's also personal responsibility too of the individuals too. It's how the life they live. So it's
yeah,
a little bit of both.
Yeah, it is. It is, man. It is.
It's good. Okay, so it's good that you're out there. There's people out there that are educating folks the right way. You know, Russ Scala YouTube channel, so let's check that out. And then looking for American Biohacker coming out too. Anything else you want to add? I mean, we had a great talk about PEDs, and I think the folks at home are a little bit more educated now and have a better direction as to where to go.
I just wanted to dispel some myths, man.
All right.
Thanks a lot,
Good
brother.
job.
Okay.
Everybody and everybody has a story. Let us find out yours today.